Today's episode is all about returning to workforce after a break. So, Siri, both of us have done it more than once and know the process can be scary and an uphill task depending on how long you've been away from work. So, we're going to talk about the highs and lows of finding a job, building a tribe to work through the transition, and giving yourself that pep talk to stay motivated. And some days, I think we need an app on our phone to help us do that. Feeling down today? Here's an app for that. Let's get started with our discussion. So, Siri, let's start with your first break. I know it was very early in your career. What was it like during the break, and how did you get back to work?
My first break was not a choice I made. There were layoffs, so I got laid off. So the hardest part of it was trying to understand how to get back to work. I had worked only for a year. So a couple of things that I did. The way I found my job was my client called that I was working for to see if I wanted to come back. So what I really learned from that experience was that you were able to, your work ethic and your relationships really helped engage them. But sort of the downside of it was a very lonely experience, right? Being laid off because it was a new place, a new town. And then the second part was just keeping in touch with my old friends and old colleagues. And the funny thing and sort of the interesting thing is when there were further layoffs in my original company, I was able to help those friends get into the client company as well. So we sort of kept that pipeline going. So it was a good experience as well.
So, as you were talking, I couldn't help but think your layoff was also at a time really early in your career, right? You had probably landed from India and was only a few years. And as I kept thinking of how we grow up, layoffs are hard everywhere. But where we grew up, layoffs were like a sign of failure and it was almost unheard of, right? People usually stayed in their job till they retired. And even now, when I read some articles, for example, the other day I was reading an article which said half the workforce will probably be laid off at least once in their lifetime. I was reading it and thinking, oh, I wasn't conscious, right? It was subconscious. I hope I'm in the other half. But then I had to tell myself, and I've learned over a period of time, layoff is just a function of being in the wrong job, wrong time, or maybe it's just not the right fit for you, right? And a layoff is a great opportunity for you to fix that wrong. So it's actually an opportunity, and that's how I think of it now. But once in a while, that thought just does rear its head.
I mean, you're right. I was on an immigrant visa, so that complicated issues. It was my first job. The feeling of getting laid off, no matter what the reason is very heart wrenching, right? You're questioning yourself as well. So it is a tough spot to be in. And I think having a support network really helps. And, those colleagues that I had were really the support network that we kept in touch with. So it's always good to have like a tribe or somebody to help keep you grounded and, kind of keep your sanity going. What about your experience?
I recently took about 4 years to take care of my kids. My break was a little different from yours, right? It was by choice. I was financially able to do it. I'm still thankful and grateful that I was able to do it. But a couple of things come to mind as I think of returning to work, because during that time, I did not volunteer. I did not take any training. I did not do any upskilling. I didn't do any networking. I did nothing related to work, right? All I did was take care of my twins. So as I started thinking of coming back to work, things I really did was the first thing I decided I'm going to go back part time first year, just to help with the transition. And I learned that part time positions are great in theory, but they do not exist very much. You don't get a lot of very good positions. So that's one of the reasons I did not go back to my old job or my old company. I reached out to another old manager who was in an agile business type of environment, and that worked out very well. So really, I had to make a little bit of a trade off and also reach out to my contacts. And then the second thing I did was during that part time year, I put my kids into daycare, got them used to the daycare. I also interviewed caregivers. I had people on call because I don't have family in town. I wanted to have some backup if I need, and also people to help with chores. So I did that. And then, like you were talking about the friends, right? I mean, at this stage, I just lost touch with them for various reasons, right? You move countries, they have kids, you have kids, and then I just lost touch. So I connected back with them. It was awesome. They all had kids. They gave me a lot of advice. They sent me stuff over, which was really nice. So it was also nice to have that tribe. We keep going back to it, but it was nice to have that tribe to help you. So many little changes I had to make to feel comfortable about work. And the quote that comes to mind is that quote where they say, it takes a village to raise a child, right? But I really think it takes a village to raise a mom and get her back to work. And it truly helps to build that village or your tribe before getting back to work.
It's a big transition in life. So I actually quit work for the second time. This time it was a choice I made, very similar to yours. I was in a better financial situation. I stayed home because I had kids and I wanted to pursue higher education at the same time. So it was a balance in the beginning. But transitioning back to work there, one is very similar to the first situation. I got a call from my old company asking me if I wanted to come back. So they interviewed me for a day and I got hired back into my old group. So that was fantastic. The other part, though, was very hard, was transitioning back when you have kids at home. So I had to, negotiate with my boss on my work hours. It's always a hard, challenging conversation to have because you don't feel at an advantage to have that. And, at those times, it wasn't the conversation that most people had. So, setting that sort of scope and what needed to be done. That's what I did. And then what I've realized, and I used to tell my colleagues this, staying at home as a mom is much harder than going back to work. Because going back to work, it's very structured. There's an end to the day. Things are done. You sort of get rewarded for it. But staying at home, the affection and the relationships you build, everything is awesome. But it is also a lot of work. So that is the thing. And the second time around, I had actually got to make friends. So had invested time. There was a bunch of 10 of us who were all stay-at-home moms who had all transitioned back to work around the same time. So we had a place to go and talk. And also my thinking had kind of changed. I became more focused, more clear on what I wanted to do. So it was very clear on what I was looking for, what I was going to do. So I was much more open to having conversations at work about different pursuits I wanted to go and explore.